Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com on your TV today. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use starts now. This is the broadcast for October 27th in the year of our Lord 2025, promoting God, family, and country, protecting life, liberty, and property, and doing so in the traditions of our founding fathers. That's who we are. That's what we do. In an effort to follow the Prince of Peace, we reject revolution, unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in. Welcome to the show, folks. I'm doing fantastic. I had a delightful, restful, God family style weekend. Hope you all had the same. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson, in my opinion, I don't know what on earth the guy is thinking. This headline is from the New York Times. Speaker Mike Johnson has placed the U.S. House of Representatives on, quote, indefinite hiatus amid a, quote, government shutdown with no policy debates or votes in over a month, ladies and gentlemen, in over a month. So they haven't really worked. Oh, he'll say, oh, they're in their districts. They're doing this, they're doing that, but they're flat out not working. Johnson's decision aligns the House with President Trump's, quote, handling of the shutdown. He's basically forbidding Congress their autonomous power. That's the problem. Johnson also refuses to swear in a representative-elect, thus causing a lawsuit. The tactics used are sidestepping typical legislative action during shutdowns. In other words, he's not even behaving normally in a shutdown. He's just following Trump's lead. Critics inside and outside of the Republican Party are saying we need to return to legislative work. Stephen K. Bannon, of course, is in the news always for everything. I don't know why he's so important. He doesn't hold any position of power, but yet he expressed, quote, significant discontent with Johnson's actions. In 2023, believe it or not, there was a rule change that allowed the speaker to, quote, unilaterally declare an extended recess without a House resolution. It's a danger. Johnson has publicly supported several of Trump's controversial decisions. They're basically in line. Now, Johnson defends his actions by aligning closely with President Trump. I look at this whole story, Dr. Bradley, and I've got a problem with it. Let you respond first, and then a question for you. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you. Very good to be back again. We jump right in on these things, and Johnson is wrong. There's no other way to put it. One word, wrong. And the fact of the matter is that, even if there is no legislative stuff that they could be doing, which they could be doing gobs of it. They've got, committee meetings that could be happening. They could be doing legislation preparation. There could be any number of things. Of course, maybe all of the congressmen are so incompetent that without their staffs, which they probably have full staffs, they're just not being paid. But there's so much.
Well, hold on. They're really being paid because they're going to get back paid. They're just not getting checks right now. But we're really paying for them, right?
Ultimately and finally, they will get checks. There's no question about that. However, you can't overlook the stress that they've got to be having in their families, trying to make mortgages and groceries and car payments and utility payments and yah. Anyway, so yeah, that's a problem. But think about this for a minute. They were gone basically, all of August and then some, and then they were gone from September 19th on. And so they've
been there for 10 months, and they've been basically on hiatus for 2 out of the 10, 1/5 of the time, not counting their limited schedule in the first place, right?
No question. So, I mean, these guys have got a pretty cool job if you're just looking at a work to pay ratio, but the fact of the matter is they're not doing the job they were hired to do. They're really this congresswoman that's been elected out of Arizona. She does, and Arizona does have a beef about that, a proper beef.
And they have every right, sure. And that's why there's a lawsuit right now. So now you got Mike Johnson and clowns have to defend themselves in a lawsuit. They're quibbling over waste of time issues. Put her in place, that she belongs there. Let's get back to doing the business of the people.
I think,
and
really,
I don't accept the government shutdown. So here's my question. Ready?
Let's try it.
Does government have the authority? Does Congress have the authority to shut the government down? In other words, we won't appropriate any money at all because we're in a fight and we're going to hold the American people hostage. At some point, that's a criminal act, isn't it?
Well, it seems like it's a violation of the spirit of the Constitution, in that the Constitution
but it's more than that, because if you don't fund the proper role of government and the military doesn't get paid, for example, now you've got a national domestic security problem, don't you?
Well, indeed,
when you let the traffic controllers literally melt down because they're not getting paid, don't you create, at some point, you create this moral hazard that's so great, you're a cause of putting the nation in jeopardy. If people get out of control and start mob rule and people get kind of crazy, and would they all be guilty of civil unrest? I mean, where does this really go at the end of the day? I don't think they have authority just to shut down the proper role of limited constitutional government. There's no authority in the Constitution that says they can just shut it down.
No, it's a strong arm tactic. There's no question about that. It's wrong to the core. This should not be on the table at all right now. And Trump is wrong. Johnson's wrong. The Senate's wrong. We've basically got a rogue federal government right now. And even, the Supreme Court is still getting together and muddling through things. But they basically, I believe, got their building shut down even, so visitors can't come in and walk in the halls of the Supreme Court in awe. But no, this whole thing is really basically a strong-arm tactic. I mean, something you would think the mob would do. I mean, hey, you can't make your payment this month for protection of your place. We're gonna shut your business down, and I'm really quite concerned that. Everything they're doing right now is just rogue. It's rogue.
And let me ask you, on one hand, they say, hey, 90% of the government still stays open. So really, in a sense, based on congressional action, they're picking and choosing what stays open and what doesn't based on the way they've legislatively backed into some of these things, right? And most of the unconstitutional things continue to roll. A lot of the constitutional things aren't even being put on the table, right?
Well, that's correct. I mean, they have the responsibility. Well, read Article 1, Section 8. That's the bulk of the duties. There are other duties also that are subsequent and part of that. But the fact of the matter is, you can read what they're supposed to be doing constantly. And they gave up a lot of those anyway. I mean, to legislate commerce with foreign nations. I mean, they've let Trump run amok with the tariffs. And
this is the other question. While government shut down, Trump gallivants around the world getting gifts from world leaders. I mean, at some point, I'm starting to not be comfortable with any of this, Doctor.
The accolades that he's getting. I mean, this No King's Day, and which went along with the stupidity of that idiotic video that he or his staff put out regarding his bombing feces on all of the marchers. I mean, the whole thing smacks of kings, the problem is that the things that are happening right now, we could go back to the Declaration of Independence and we could read the actions of the king and the things that the king was doing that really took the nation to blood.
Maybe we ought to review some of those, Doctor. If you can pull it up, we can come take our break and do that, or start on it at least, because I think this is really, really important, though. Look, Speaker Mike Johnson has placed the House of Representatives on indefinite hiatus. See, I don't think he really has authority to do that. And I know you could say, well, the House can make up their own rules. They can in terms of their operation. But I don't think, Doctor, that they can in terms of just shutting down the government. Otherwise, what would stop a speaker? The second congressional session was open to say, we're going to go home for the whole year. We're not going to legislate this year. We believe there's been too much legislation. Therefore, we're just going to go home. We're not going to even show up to Congress for the whole session. I mean, at some point, if you say that they can do it for, I don't know, however long we determine the time is right now, then you can certainly do that for the whole time. Can't you? I mean, what's to stop the Speaker of the House just saying, hey, it's the first day of the congressional session. We're going home. We'll come back on the last day and gavel out. But other than that, we're not going to be here. We don't want to be here. We don't like working.
Why don't we read the last clause of Article 1, Section 5, just for the fun of it, okay?
Yes, sir.
Neither house, either the House or the Senate, okay, during the session of Congress shall, without the consent of the other, adjourn. Now they're using they're using weasel words, but in effect they're in adjournment. Shall adjourn for more than 3 days, nor to any other place than that in which the two houses shall be sitting. So, I mean, it's like I said, he's violating the spirit of it.
What's the penalty when you adjourn for too long?
Well, it says you can't. See, that's the problem. It's the Constitution.
But what if you do? All right, let's talk about it when we get back, because that's the question. You can't, but yet he did. So what do you do?
Well, it's not adjournment. He didn't say they adjourned. Go ahead.
Dr. Scott Bradley with us. What did they do, huh? Hang tight.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began. Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
All right, Dr. Bradley. So I'm saying that at some point we can play games with words, but at some point, I don't know what it's called if you leave, but you don't say the words adjourn. And I don't want to get stuck on language here because you can play games all day long. They say Speaker Mike Johnson in this article has placed the U.S. House of Representatives on what's called indefinite hiatus. Can you be on indefinite hiatus without an adjournment?
Well, that's the thing. They're saying they still exist and they're still in business, but they're just, hanging around the local bar.
Wait, if government shut down, how do you exist and how are you in business? If government shut down, you guys all don't have a job.
Well, again, they're using weasel words to get around it because they didn't say, "Oh, we're adjourning." No, they're not adjourning. We're on hiatus. I mean, and so that's the thing. Neither house.
Here's the next question: if you are my congressman, and you literally go on hiatus and play games with words, and you're literally MIA for 2 out of 10 months at least, and at some point, do I just simply say, you've lost your elected position, we have to have a new election?
Well, no. Constitutionally, you can't do that. But
okay, but they can't do what they did, right?
No. See, the thing is,
so now what?
When criminals run business,
yes.
When the inmates are running the
asylum,
then we do have a big problem, and it's time to replace them. But our duty as voters is to replace them. But you cannot recall. That was a specific capability that was in.
But I don't need to recall them. They're already gone. So they've left their post. They're MIA, right?
Can't do it. Can't do it. You may adjourn from day to day, but they can be compelled by their own body. I'm reading from the Constitution to attend the attendance of absent members. Okay, so as in such manner and under such penalties as each house may apply. Each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its
they're
members.
saying there's no penalty and there's no harm, no foul. We just do what we want. And
that's
we have
the
no
thing.
recourse, is what you're saying, except for waiting for the next election cycle and vote them out.
Well, that's November, guy. I mean, here's the problem. We, the people, have become so complicit and so complacent that we don't hold anybody accountable. Ultimately and finally, it boils down to us enforcing this Constitution. But see,
but we don't vote except for every 2 years on the House of Representatives.
That's why it's 2 years, because it's not 4 years. It's not indefinite. See, this is one of the things they needed a term of office that was long enough to do what needed to be done.
Isn't it 26 that we would vote for him?
Say again?
Isn't it 26 that we would vote for him?
26 what?
2026. It's a year.
Oh, 2026. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Isn't that when we vote for them?
That's November first week in November, 2026.
Yeah. So what you're saying is I've got to wait 2 years for these clowns to sit around, steal my money, shut down the government, literally create a moral hazard in the country, literally melt down the economy, literally create a national security crisis, because they're not willing to work. And I'm supposed to just sit around for 2 years with no recourse.
The people can put pressure on during the term of office, but recall or new elections or anything like that were in the Articles of Confederation, and they
took them out. I understand.
They took them out on purpose.
In this case, though, there's nothing that talks about they're abandoning their post, though, right?
That is correct, and they've
abandoned their post.
The people themselves, Sam, we the people, get off your butt, call your congressman, say, get your asses back in the job. And everybody across the nation has got to do that. You ride your donkey back in because you're bringing your ass back in, if you want to use that vernacular. But the fact of the matter is that we, the people, have got to start saying, look, you guys got elected to do a job. And it's a shame, an absolute shame that this congresswoman out of Arizona has to file suit to get her job, that she was duly elected to represent her district from home. And they're holding that off. And I believe the reason they're holding that off is not because they're on hiatus. The reason they're holding that off is because Trump does not want the 218th name on there for the Jeffrey Epstein files to be released. They're going to call their bluff on that thing and get those people in the job. I mean, and bring that forward. And so this is a multifaceted problem, and the people have got to say, no, get your donkeys back into the office.
Yeah, I get it. I think the American people don't realize they literally, besides Americans calling their congressmen or senators, you might even try to peacefully assemble, but then they'll turn that peaceful assemble or a redress of grievance call, so to speak. Can we do that? Can we sue our congressmen and senators and say, hey, we want a redress of grievance here. You guys are out of line and you're not doing your job. And I mean, look, any other situation, if you were to literally be MIA and you worked for me, I would just simply fire you and say, look, you're not going to get paid. You're not going to continue in your position if you're not willing to do the job I hired you to do. Now, I want to obey the Constitution, but at some point there's got to be answers. And if there's not, eventually, I don't want it to, but eventually it's going to go violent. People are just going to lose their patience. And I'm not justifying that or saying that's okay. I'm just telling you that when you leave people with no redress of grievance, when you leave people just backed into a corner, when you leave people without paychecks and economically stripped of any, that's when the gloves come off, Doctor. I'm just telling you.
Well, it's sad to say, though, Sam, I'm quite confident that the majority of Americans agree with what's going on right now. And that's why nothing's happening. If there were, half or more of the country that were calling their senators and congressmen right this minute.
Yeah, but when you call them, all you get is an auto attendant.
Okay. Email them, text them, whatever you got to do.
Or at best, maybe you get an assistant that answers because they're forced to work without a paycheck. And they'll be like, yes, sir. Thanks for your call, Sam Bushman. Where are you calling from? And if I'm not calling from the right district, they throw it away. If I'm calling from the right district, they log it in their book and dismiss me politely, and the congressman or woman or senator or whatever never even really sees it. Right.
What you're saying is everyone should be removed from office. I'm going along with that. There's only 2 or 3 that are worth their salt anyway.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, it is the people, and go to your town meetings. If they're out there meeting with the people, express your dismay.
Amen.
They've got
I agree.
to feel the pressure.
But they're not, and they're not feeling any pressure, and they've basically figured ways to prevent them from feeling the pressure. If they don't take my phone calls, I mean, there's no way to text them. I don't know where I'd text. I can try to email them, but there's not really an email. There's just an inbox that some aide reviews. They've insulated themselves from the people. We're getting close to, and now let's break out the Declaration of Independence for a second. We're getting close to what King George has done. We really are.
Well, if just you bring this declaration up, and absolutely, it reads like today's news today. And I do, when I review it, and in classes or whatever I teach, I try to read it like today's news today. It's not just ancient history. And when the beginning and ending paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence are the monumental, eloquent, statesman-like overtures that were made to bring this forth as a legal document, but in the middle is 27 offenses of the king, and the king had, and they lay these right at the feet of the king, and let's just look at a couple.
And we need to lay this right at the feet of the House of Representatives. They're the ones that control the purse strings, people.
That's correct. But by the way, in the Declaration of Independence, here's one that just kind of fits what the House themselves are doing. The fifth offense of the king. When they says he, they mean the king. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. Now, they're doing this at the behest of Trump, I believe, what they're doing. So, yes, it can be laid at the feet of the king. But the fact of the matter is the House of Representatives are complicit in this thing, and that their unmanly speaker, Mike Johnson, is kowtowing. The legislative body is an equal body of officers in the government with the presidency, as is the judiciary. They're
equal by three branches in nature, but the ones closest to the people, I submit, have more power because they work for us.
And that's
when we have greater
reason.
Influence via that body, then it has by nature more power. I'm not suggesting they're not equal constitutionally. I'm just saying that if we use it properly, we the people, meaning our best effort is in the House. They're closest to us. They are elected every 2 years. We have the greatest control of that group, right? Or at least in theory, we should.
The House was given 2 years to sit in office because it is the most powerful arm, if you will, of the government, because they control the people, they have the voice of the people, which is a very powerful motivating force. And the other thing is they have the power of the purse. So they were given the shortest term of office. The senators are much less powerful, but so they were given 6 years. The president was given 4 years. The judiciary, we say they were given life, but no, it's during good behavior, and some should have life sentences. But the fact of the matter is,
some should have two different kind of life sentences.
Right, exactly. But the point of the matter being that they were based upon power that they could wield. Therefore, the House got a shorter sentence, if you will, or term. And so, but that point number 5 of the king's offenses, it goes right along with what's going on right now. But let's just jump down to point number 8. He's obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. The House has been messing up with, the Senate on its approval has been messing with this. Sounds like we've got to take another break. I mean, it's time so flies when we're in the middle of stuff.
That's because we dig in like nobody's business, ladies and gentlemen. Look, Speaker Mike Johnson, in my opinion, has got us on hiatus. I don't even know what that means. It just means they're stealing my money and they're not working for it. And I literally have no recourse because I can't get a hold of my congressman unless I just vote him out next term. I got a year plus to wait around. In the meantime, I can be frustrated, I can be angry, but they've really made it to where I have no redress of grievance. I don't dare protest because they'll turn it into violence and blame it on me and throw me in the clink. So my First Amendment's almost violent. I'm glad I can still speak on TV. That's the only difference. We got to get involved, people. If we don't, this spectator sport, we're in trouble. Hang tight.
Protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. After departing Malaysia, President Trump is now in Japan, where he'll be meeting with the country's newly minted prime minister this evening.
I think the key thing is to reiterate how important Japan is to the United States, the fact that this is their deeply rooted, most strategic partner in the region. And it's militarily strategic, of course, because Japan hosts the biggest number of U.S. troops abroad in U.S. bases here, but also economically, because Japan pumps in billions and billions of dollars into the U.S. economy. And of course, under the U.S. tariff deal, they've promised even more investments, $550 billion. So expect Donald Trump to frame this as a win for the American economy, for American jobs.
The BBC's Shaima Halil said that after Japan, Mr. Trump visits South Korea midweek. And during his time there, he'll meet with Chinese President Xi amid reports of significant progress on a trade deal. Category 5, Hurricane Melissa is bearing down on Jamaica. The winds have been picking up, torrential rain falling, and the island's 2 airports are closed. Government shutdown, day 27. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy predicts more flight delays, more flight cancellations as air traffic controllers work without pay.
My job is to keep the airspace safe. And so if I don't feel like I have enough controllers or enough controllers that are focused, we will slow down traffic. We will stop traffic. And that's why you see the delays in the system. And the job number one is, again, get people to where they're going safely.
Duffy on Fox News Sunday Morning Futures. Indiana's Republican Governor Mike Braun has called a special legislative session to redraw congressional districts in a bid to add more GOP seats. A lot of cleanup to be done across parts of southern Mississippi hit by a couple of tornadoes over the weekend. Watching Wall Street, the Dow is up 206 points. The Nasdaq ahead 334 points. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Just hearing the word IRS can make people break out in a cold sweat. No one wants to deal with the IRS, and now you don't have to. The good news is Legal Tax Defense has been successfully negotiating with the IRS for more than 15 years. It doesn't matter how much you owe, whether it's $5,000 or $5 million. You deserve the best in the business on your side, and that is Legal Tax Defense. Even if you're working with someone else and just want a second opinion, there is no cost or obligation to call. They can prevent levies, liens, wage garnishments, even file back tax returns. And the best news about Legal Tax Defense is they won't take your case unless they know they will reduce or eliminate your tax debt. Call Legal Tax Defense right now for a free, no-risk consultation. 800-292-7875. 800-292-7875. You have nothing to lose but everything to gain. 800-292-7875.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
You know where the solution can be found, Mr. President? In churches, in wedding chapels, in maternity wards across the country and around the world. More babies will mean forward-looking adults, the sort we need to tackle long-term, large-scale problems. American babies in particular are likely going to be wealthier, better educated, and more conservation-minded than children raised in still industrializing countries. As economist Tyler Cowen recently wrote, quote, "By having more children, you're making your nation more populous, thus boosting its capacity to solve climate change. The planet does not need for us to think globally and act locally so much as it needs us to think family and act personally. The solution to so many of our problems, at all times and in all places, is to fall in love, get married, and have some kids."
All right, it's Dr. Bradley and Sam Bushman. We're talking about this situation. A New York Times headline of all places. Speaker Mike Johnson has placed the U.S. House of Representatives on indefinite hiatus. They haven't even voted or done anything literally for a month. This, they told you, was going to be the most valuable, productive, Congress would ever have. They lied. They're absolutely violating their oaths of office. They're absolutely putting the American government in my humble opinion, a national security crisis. And then we have no recourse for the next 2 years. Well, next, I guess, year, because we've already wasted a year, right? And we have no real ability to do anything except for maybe call your congressmen or senators. They won't get the calls or the problem. You can try to meet with them. They won't meet with you. You can go ahead and be mad. You can talk in the media, but you really got to just wait till the next election and vote them out if you don't want them there. There's nothing else we can really do. We could try to get a hold of you can't have an event because you might get shot. You can't have an event because if you do, they might turn it against you and have government provocateurs in the crowd that are not working for government anymore, but really are. And they'll, make it go violent and throw you in the clink. They've really basically taken all of our avenues to bring them into the line away from us. That's why we're looking at the Declaration of Independence and saying, hey, so we talked about the 5th abuse. We just talked about the 8th abuse, Doctor.
Well, as we go on with this, I would remind everybody, and this has become quite cliche almost in recent years, is that elections have consequences.
Yes, they do.
And in our particular state, I really truly believe that all 4 of the members of the House are worthy of being tossed. And the problem is that most of the people, and that is the problem, the people get the kind of government that they deserve. And if, as irritated as we are about this kind of thing, most people support it. And so
in a way they support it. We think they do because we don't really see them stopping it. The problem is I don't know what to do to stop it or what to do to make a change. So I guess you could say I support it, right?
Well, that's the problem, is that we're trying to keep our actions within the bounds that were established by the Constitution.
Of course we are. We want to hold the moral high ground.
And if, in fact, we're irritated to no end in regards to this issue, I would throw it to anybody to say, come up with a constitutional solution that we can go forward with. And the solution truly is for the people to remove their representatives from office. But that has to wait for the next election. And that's why these elections have consequences. We are choosing poorly. We have extremely, shall we say, complicit members of Congress that are more Republican in our state than they are constitutionalists. And
I understand. Now, then we take the next step, though, and you say, hey, I appreciate that we can elect the right people next time go around, but with the election fraud going on, that even makes people believe that the elections don't matter and are not important. I disagree with that, but I understand the frustration and the viewpoint. But it's getting worse, and I'll tell you why. Now the Trump administration just announced that the Justice Department will monitor polling sites in California and New Jersey for the November 4th election. This decision follows requests by Republican Party officials in those states, and the DOJ's, quote, Civil Rights Division will ensure transparency and compliance with federal law at polling places. The DOJ has already sued several states seeking voter data to verify voter list accuracy. Monitors, they say, will be stationed in 5 counties in California, and in New Jersey's, I think it's Passaic County. And so now you've got the feds tampering with local elections, supposedly so they don't violate federal law. And I don't even understand how they can have that happen if the government's shut down, but that's another topic. Anyway, very interesting. I'm not comfortable with the feds deciding they're going to be the ones to monitor the elections to make sure that the laws are being obeyed. I mean, do you trust the feds to do that, Doctor?
As we talked about the last get-together we had, we talked about how it was the intent of the American Founding Fathers to have the elections run locally.
Yes,
and I just asked the question to you, is the next step blue helmets out of the United Nations to come and, oversee so that they've got these noble individuals that don't have, a skin in the game, if you will. They can be independent monitors, blah, blah, blah. See, the way we're doing this is wrong all the way around, and we don't have a principles-based people. As John Adams said, this Constitution was wholly inadequate to the government of anybody but a religious and moral people. And sadly, we are losing that very quickly. And in fact, it may be completely gone now. But I'm, you talk about the election integrity for many years now, decades, literally decades. I've been in meetings where people said it's time to take your M16 and run down the street shooting windows out.
And I disagree 1,000%.
Well, the problem is that, yeah, of course I disagree. But the fact of the matter is, if you're doing that, what are you doing? What is your end game? What is your solution? And the founding fathers were statesmen. They were diplomats. They were well-founded in these principles that Locke and Blackstone and the Montesquieu guys had put out before, and they'd cobbled them together in a very, very usable sense that was brought together under the inspiration of God, I believe. And so they had an approach to it. They had the Westphalian Treaty of 1648 behind them to become an independent nation. And all of these things, none of the people that are saying run down the street breaking windows is going to bring anything about. So I always said, no, it's not the time. It's not the time. Don't do it. Don't do it. You have an M16, they have F-16s. This was when they first started really being kind of vocal about this. But the fact of the matter is that they don't have a solution. And all it will bring about is what the communists have always sought to bring about anyway, this conflict, which causes disruption, unsettles society, and they end up replacing society's norms with the communist program.
Yeah, what happens is the people who want to grab their guns have this Pollyanna approach that somehow out of war will come peace, out of disarming government and stopping government. Everybody will sit down and say, let's bring the Constitution back. It's a Pollyanna approach that doesn't have any basis of reality. Once you go down the war road, it's virtually impossible to get out of it and to stop it.
It's destructive. The system eats itself. But here's the deal. All along, all these years, I've been saying we still have the election. We still have the Constitution. Well, my arguments have become quite a bit weaker. I mean, I'll admit that right now.
Well, let's be clear. They become weaker because of the violation of the Constitution. They're not weaker in fact. They're just weaker.
No, the principles are still sound.
Yes.
But they're weaker because we are destroying the election process. And by the way, Utah was an early adopter of the automated elections, the machines, the mail-in, all that kind of nonsense. And that was done by the Republican machine in Utah. So Utah has been an early adopter, and if it flies in Utah, it'll fly in Iowa or in New Jersey or wherever. And now we have widespread voter fraud and election fraud. Utah needs to regain control of it, as does every other part of the state.
Well, they gypped Phil Lyman, and they basically committed fraud to get him out, in my humble opinion, to which I'm entitled. So, I mean, there you go, right?
So we have a weaker voting system, and then we have another problem is that our religiosity, our willingness to obey the Constitution has diminished. And so as a moral people without principles, we're kind of cast adrift. And that's where the nation has been going. It's time to recalibrate ourselves with these principles and begin to abide in them. So if you're a Republican in Utah, you're part of the machine. That's part of the problem. And the machine.
That's true. So out of the 27 27-item list that the founders put in the Declaration of Independence, how close do you think we are on a lot of these? Are we way far away, or are we getting close?
Well, I can say we're getting a lot closer, but it's still not blood. I mean, we still can save this if we're willing to, but I'll just read you a few more. We don't have time to read all 27. This is number 10. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. Well, there's the
IRS.
There's multiple government agencies, OSHA, NIOSH, BATFE, go on, people. These agencies did not exist in the times of the founders. And Okay, steps among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. How many lawsuits have we got right now that are talking about the rolling in of federal forces into cities in other states?
And many states are opposing it. Now, the problem with the discussion is because people believe in the folly of parties. They say, well, Trump's doing it. The Republicans are guilty. The Democrats have to fight it. But see, that's, allegiance to parties, not the truth or principle. And to me, I don't like the federal government coming into these states and deciding they're going to, quote, quell the public or whatever you want to say. The states are perfectly capable of taking care of that on their own.
Generally speaking, that's true. You think if Biden was doing this, we're talking about, I just combined against this the subject of jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution, acts of pretended legislation. I don't know. I can go on.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
The Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit legal foundation committed to protecting our unalienable right to publicly acknowledge God. The Foundation for Moral Law exists to restore the knowledge of God in law and government and to acknowledge and defend the truth that man is endowed with rights not by our fellow man, but by God. The Foundation maintains a twofold focus. First, litigation within state and federal courts. Second, education. Conducting seminars to teach the necessity and importance of acknowledging God in law and government. How can you help? Please make a tax-deductible contribution, allowing Foundation attorneys to continue the fight. You may also purchase various Foundation products as well at morallaw.org. Located in Montgomery, Alabama, the Foundation for Moral Law is a nonprofit, tax-exempt 501c3 founded by Judge Roy Moore. Please partner with us to achieve this important mission. morallaw.org.
All right, safeguarding of information coming up soon. In the meantime, though, Doctor, you are finishing on these egregious abuses by not only the king back in the day of George, but now it's Donald and Biden and Bush and, the list goes on, right? Obama. They're all really doing the same things. They act like they're different, but they do the same things, which is continue to grab power in the presidency, right?
They do. The president is usurping and has been doing for decades. Go back to FDR and see what kind of nonsense he was pulling off. But no, unless, and I know that your audience does not, they couldn't, in the possible extremist of assumptions, believe that we supported the No Kings effort of this last weekend. But the fact of the matter is that...
Well, let's be clear. We do believe in No Kings. We don't support the No Kings effort.
What they're going about this is a kind of an Antifa-based kind of thing. But these things that the king did are today's news today. This acts of pretended legislation. Executive orders are not legislation. All legislative authority is in the legislative.
Yeah, the Declaration of Independence calls it pretend legislation, right?
Yeah, pretended legislation.
Yeah, pretended legislation. Yep.
There's being denied jury trials in many instances. There's lawsuits about that, transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. There's these dark sites that they take some of these people they really don't agree with. They were planning on assassinating, Julian Assange, who should be a hero in America for the thing he brought forth. Here's altering fundamental. I'm just skipping down through these. Altering fundamentally the forms of our government. What the heck?
Yeah, like shut it down, and now you can't get a hold of your congressman because he's on hiatus. They're never adjourned. He's just on hiatus, right?
Just suspending our own legislatures. They've done themselves that way. See, these parties have taken over what the king, as they're facilitating what the king wants, I guess, is what we're doing right now.
That's right. And that's the folly of parties in the beginning. And that's why the founding fathers warned against parties. I don't know who to blame for this next headline, Doctor, but I got to get to it.
Okay.
There's a lady by the name of Twyla Braze. Twyla Braze. She's president of the Citizens Council for Health Freedom. That's who she is. And she appeared on a show hosted by Jimmy Dore on October 27th. Just a couple, let's see, when is October 27th? I guess this morning, I guess. Anyway, it might have been pre-recorded and then released this morning. I don't know. But anyway, it relates to what Rand Paul put in place. They want to discuss the Safeguard Personal Information Act of 2025 put together by Rand Paul. This bill, introduced by Rand Paul, aims to repeal the federal Real ID law. They basically say the Real ID law is disaster. It'll eventually be used for a, quote, social credit score. It's a federally controlled digital ID and surveillance system under the guise of a state-issued driver's license. She warns that it'll eventually be linked into a global ID, linked to biometrics and a social ID credit system. Anyway, they say you can go to refuserealid.org, and that's a good campaign. I mean, I appreciate their efforts, but at the same time, I kind of go, she then says you can refuse to take your picture at the airport. You can do this, you can do that. It's just going to get people in trouble doing some of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, we've fought this for over 20 years, and now it comes to being under Donald Trump. Who do we blame for this one? Trump? Congress? I mean, somebody's got to take the hit, don't they, Doctor?
Well, obviously, let me just read you I was looking it up as you were doing this, so I've got it in my hand now. This is a Jefferson statement. Single acts of tyranny may be ascribed to the accidental opinion of a day, but a series of oppressions begun at a distinguished period and pursued unalterably through every change of ministers to plainly prove a deliberate, systematical plan of reducing us to slavery. You just put the whole litany of presidents that have been involved in this kind of thing, and Congress too. Everybody's at fault. And like I say, some of us have been wasting our warning for decades now. And I believe that this bill, 2025, probably won't happen because nobody's in session to do anything they're supposed to do. But there is no constitutional authority for this national ID. There's no constitutional authority to do these next steps. And that's what she's warning against, is that, people say, I got a little star on my driver license, big deal. It shows I've been through the program, yeah. But usually, as pointed out, these go from administration to administration, and they become more egregious every time. You look back about when they said, let's get driver licenses. They're nothing except for identification. No, there's no going to be any real problem. Nowadays, the police officer's opinion is you can't drive without it, and you take an agreement when you take that license that you give away certain rights. So this whole thing is just a step-by-step process is into slavery and tyranny, as Thomas Jefferson said.
So who's to blame? Is it the president? Is it Trump? Is it Congress? Is it the House? Who's to blame for this Real ID thing?
Us. We didn't vote those turkeys out of office when they started doing this.
I know, but we couldn't because there was elections.
No, come on, Sam. We can't deflect it from us. We, the people, are ignorant. We're complicit. We're complacent. We just are lazy slobs, and we're expecting somebody else. We put an R in office in Utah. Other states put a D in office.
Yeah, so the masses, there's a lot of truth to that. The problem is they feel disenfranchised for so many reasons. It's hard for me to give them the singular blame,
Well, who puts the people in office? Who is it?
I'm not sure.
It's we the people.
Some say they're elected. Others say they're selected. I don't really know anymore.
Well, the parties are selecting them, and we have been complicit in this whole thing all along. We have been giving away so let me ask you right now, what do you think we ought to do?
I don't have the answers yet. I think a couple of things are of interest. For example, Mitt Romney is a great case in point. The people who we put in place, the delegates, rejected Romney, right?
Right.
And then what happened is they created laws and circumvented, and they said if you get your name on a ballot or if you get this many signatures, you can circumvent the caucus system and you can this and that. And so every time they find ways around it, and we say, well, we can't really prosecute. We can't really do this, that, because they can make up their own rules and and so every time our hands are tied. And so I get that the people are ultimately responsible, and I agree with that general principle. At the same time, they've done so many things to circumvent it. At this point, what do? I think the only real answer to the problem is not even political. It's to spend time repenting before God. It's to spend time with your family. And it's not even to focus on the political realm so much as it is to say, if we have moral people calling to their God for protection and guidance, he will provide. And if we don't do that, no matter what we do, we're in trouble. So I think the only real answer is to turn inwards and cleanse the inner vessel in our own hearts and minds, and then to individually stand up as husbands and wives and fathers and mothers and teach our families the proper principles of self-government, and then to learn after those things are in place to rein in government one line item at a time. I don't think there's any quick fix to this, but I do think that's the real answer.
Well, absolutely. Those are, and Adam said it so succinctly, a religious and a moral people. The problem is we're losing that, and we haven't done that in our families. But unless we understand the principles, the foundational principles, the contract that we have before America, it's not anything that idiot Mitt Romney, Newt Gingrich put together in the mid-1990s. That is not the contract with America is the United States Constitution. Limits and bounds, checks and balances, delegations of authority, those kinds of things are clearly put out. You talk about the Real ID, the state legislatures capitulated on that. They capitulated on the COVID con, where they gave the executives the authority to create law. They created laws that says you can't hold anybody responsible. We, the people, put those buffoons into office also. And that's the problem, is we are not paying attention. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. That's what Andy Jackson said in his farewell address. So we, the people, have got to bear responsibility. Every one of these things that are descending upon us were created by our own representatives, and none of us. I know there's people that resist this kind of thing and stand up to it, but the party systems, everything we have been warned against. And if we had time, which I know we've run out of, we could talk about the secret combinations that are established and how they were spoken of very clearly and specifically by the American founding fathers, and how they are the ones that are destroying our liberty. But if the people don't care, if they go out and get the jab, if they capitulate at every turn, the question is, okay, let's say there's 10 of us that go back to God. What happened in Sodom and Gomorrah? What happened when Abraham was negotiating to keep the destruction from Sodom and Gomorrah from happening? Well, what if we can find 50? What about 40? What about 30? Get down to a handful or two handsful. And they said, okay, fine, we'll save those countries or those cities. But they weren't even available. They couldn't find that many people. In America, we're kind of approaching that.
Well, the question becomes, is Trump preparing for a war with Venezuela?
You're going to have to answer that in the next question. I think they want regime change there. I really do believe that, and they're marching that direction. And again, it's another unconstitutional act by a monarch.
Bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you and me to live godly lives, to teach our loved ones and those around us to do the same. And then most importantly, as we become a moral people, we need to plead for God to protect us. The power of prayer cannot be underestimated. We need to remain peaceful, folks. I don't bring you to the brink of frustration, except to get you to understand that I get that frustration. At the end of the day, the key, God save the Republic of the United States of America and help us to keep his commandments to do so.